What's up, y'all? My name is T. Shaw, and this is Brewing Black Podcast, where the contents we serve you is authentic, vulnerable, and relatable. That means we serve you with no cream and no sugar.
I guess I like my coffee black.
Happy Merry Black History Month, Black Bruins.
Yo, what's going on? This is Scholar P.
And it's T. Shaw.
And we want to welcome you to Brewing Black, the show that talks about news and media and entertainment on a national level. T. Shaw, how you feeling, brother?
Bro, I am feeling amazing. I know I say I feel good every week, but coming off the birthday week, we going to jump into it a little bit later. But I'm just on a high right now, bro. It's a cloud nine. How you feeling?
Yeah, I'm feeling really good, man. I can definitely relate. I have had a very, very productive week. Dissertation stuff is coming good. Turned in some fellowship applications.
Okay.
And so we blessed over here, baby.
I see you, bro. I see you. So before we get started, like we like to do, we have to acknowledge the land that we're on. So today we are sitting on the land of the Gabrielino and the Tongva. This is stolen land. This is colonized land, and we will always, always, always pay those respects.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we also, want to give a shout out and say rest in peace to the legend Cicely Tyson.
Absolutely.
Who passed away, one of our Black legends of Hollywood. So many people have reached out in support and in their sort of grieving of her, talking about the impact that she had on their lives. And especially, we had our friend Saturn on here sort of talking about colorism in the professional world. And there are a lot of people like Viola Davis who came out and was saying that like Cicely Tyson gave her the permission to be successful and unapologetic in the acting industry as a darker skinned woman. So just shout out to the way that Cicely Tyson made people feel, right?
Absolutely.
Rest in peace. That's the type of legacy that we all would love to leave behind. Like, she is such an important part of entertainment, especially within Black history. So shout out to her.
Yes, rest in peace and rest in power.
Yes, absolutely. So like we always like to do, we try to start off our show by giving you all a quote to sit on, to let breathe. But after that, we are going to get into something that we like to call our light roast. Right. So, and that's when we critique something or someone in society, but also try to give them some constructive feedback, if possible. It's not always possible, y'all, believe it or not.
We try.
We do what we can. Right. Exactly. So our quote for today is: the question is not whether the good outweighs the bad. The question is whether or not the good excuses the bad. And in my opinion, it never does. It doesn't. As long as wrongs are being committed in any quantity and in any ratio to the amount of good that is being done, it is both irresponsible and wrong not to bring awareness to it and struggle to put an end to it. Whew, that was a lot. That was by Derek R. Audette. So, T, there was a lot there.
There is.
But I want you to tell me what you felt about any part of that quote.
So it's hard. I think this quote, there's a lot of elements to it. But when it says it's not whether the question is not whether the good outweighs the bad, is if the good excuses the bad, and it said in their opinion it never does. And I think in a lot of ways that's really true. I think especially on a larger scale, right? Like when we think about the government, and like taking care of people, because that's the role of the government. If there are some people taking an L, then it's not a good system. In no way, shape, or form should anyone be sacrificed in that way. So that is where I see the quote being true. But then I think about it on like a personal level. So I think that like on a macro level, I think that this reigns really true. But on a more micro level, on that personal level, like I think for people, it's just like, I think everybody is kind of infallible, or everybody's fallible, right? Everybody has like good and bad qualities. So I think it should be if the good outweighs the bad. I think as long as there's not too much bad, like and there are things that you can deal with and things that don't necessarily harm you, then I think then that's okay. I think nobody's perfect. So I think on that sense, I don't know if I could completely agree with it. But what do you think?
No, absolutely. Yeah, because I think that when we think about systems, I think that there are a lot of systems, and we're going to get into that pretty soon, actually, but there are a lot of systems that ignore the bad entirely and wholeheartedly.
Absolutely.
For reasons of power and greed and money and things of that nature.
American democracy.
Absolutely, right. But personally, what it makes me think about is this idea of the fact that you're going to be the villain in someone's story, right? And there's no escaping that, whether you did something filled with malice towards them or not, right? And a lot of us, we do make mistakes and we do become the villains in people's stories because of things that we did. And it's learning how to live with that and to make sure you're not the villain in everybody's story.
Yeah.
To make sure that someone can look at you and say, yo, that was a dope chapter because of my life because of that person, right? Like T-Shaw really made pages 23 through 45 lit and awesome.
Yeah.
T-Shaw's presence really made my book a much better read. But also realizing that, you can't feel the guilt and the shame forever for being the villain in someone's book. You know what I'm saying? I've definitely been the villain in many a person's book, but I've also had the resilience and the resolve to move past that and be a good person in someone's books. And then I think my final thing is realizing that, you are a mixture, right? So it's like, it's not just a good and a bad. It's everything, right?
Yeah.
It's Gad, you know what I'm saying? It's Bud, you know what I'm saying? Like we're a mixture of experiences. And I think that if it was one way or another, we'd either not appreciate life for as much as we could if everything was all bad, or we wouldn't have hope if things were always bad. So it goes back and forth.
Yeah, and something you said reminded me of this quote that I heard in my journalism class. I think my senior year. The teacher said that it was an affirmation. She told us to be the star in our own movie. And I think a lot of people take that to heart. But then sitting there, I thought about, like, how could I take this further? And I always told myself I wanted to be like the leading supporting actor in a lot of other people's story too. It's like my movie, I already know is going to be hard. Like I'm the star in it. Like I'm really doing my thing. But I think that like so many of us like think about our own story so much that people just belong to your story. It's like, no, everybody has their own movie going on. And it's like, how can I best support your movie? How can I make sure that your movie go number one at the box office too? Like there's a lot of different seats. There's a lot of different theaters going on. Like everybody can have some shine. Right. So I really liked how you talked about just being able to be a part of someone's story and really making that page 20 through 50 lit. And it's like that might be the only time you spend with those people, but like just making an impact on their lives. I think that's the next level of thinking.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think, we'll get into this later when we talk about your birthday and your reflections, but I think you've been able to successfully do that. You know what I'm saying?
Something I appreciate that.
Yeah. And I think that, a lot of what we're going to be talking about today is in some way, shape, or form related to legacy. And like when you think about your legacy, you think about how people made you feel. So, you just really want to run with that.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the reasons that we brought this up was because for those of you who do not know, because this is actually sort of pretty recent news, Mark Cuban, of the owner of the Dallas Mavericks, one of the sharks on the show Shark Tank on ABC, he recently made sure that the national anthem did not play for the Dallas Mavericks home games. And so he was doing this for a while, but then the NBA said, hey, it's our policy that you allow the national anthem to play. And so, Mark sort of had his thing where he was tweeting out, hey, look, I don't see why I have to do this. Like, why don't y'all go complain to your bosses about why they don't play the national anthem every time you go to work. Mm-hmm. I can say that, Black Lives Matter and that there's systemic, injustices racially in this country. And so, I think that we have to, when we think about the quote and we think about our light roast, the light roast has to go to people who are still questioning the national anthem, who are still talking about it as a mandatory tradition. So tell me more about what you think about people who hold on to that ideology.
Yeah, bro. Like, I think it's crazy that the NBA has kind of come out and tried to force all teams to play this national anthem. Again, we're thinking about the legacy, right? We're thinking about the legacy of American democracy and like the legacy of just America in general, and like how some people have been at the lower end of the stick, right? I think that it becomes difficult for me to really champion the NBA like I used to, especially in comparison to the NFL, because we saw this with Kaepernick, right? He kind of started this movement, and it's crazy that 2020 we saw the bubble happen, and it felt like, okay, 4 years later, people are finally listening to what Kaepernick is talking about. The NBA has this Black Lives Matter thing going on all over their bubble games. Black Lives Matter is all on Call of Duty and all of these other things, right? And we think about like how the NBA has now taken this stance, forcing people to listen to the national anthem. And when we talk about the national anthem, I think there's a lot of problems with like the lyrics, right? We know that the writer was a racist. Like, it talked about killing slaves, I'm pretty sure, like that chose to fight on the other side. And I think that we're so far, we should have learned by now. I think that's the toughest thing. It's like, as I'm sitting down talking to my students about this each and every day, it's like they're so flabbergasted, like really, like they feel like they've been hoodwinked, bamboozled, like in so many different ways by like history. And I think that forcing teams and forcing these black players to stand for this national anthem forces it tricks us into thinking that like we all buy into what's kind of going on, that we don't have problems. And I think that they're trying to force us into unity, force us into like this patriotism, and it's like not even real. And so it becomes kind of frustrating for me, because it's like the NBA was supposed to be like our league, and we see how quick they switch up. So was it just for show?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that and I think it goes back to this thing where it's like both and, right? So we've seen the NBA be, more progressive on these issues sometimes in the NFL, which we appreciate. But like you said, you get used to that standard of support. And so it's a real blow to the chest when you find out just how far they'll toe the line when it's something as simple as not letting a national anthem play. And so for those of you who might not know, T, I love that you brought up Francis Scott Key, because Francis Scott Key was actually the writer of the national anthem. And what people don't know is that he was very, I guess, monumental in shaping the U.S. Supreme Court. He himself was a slave owner. He advised Andrew Jackson, who was also a slave owner. And so he was very much invested in the institution of slavery. And his lyrics, that third stanza of the national anthem goes a little something like this: no refuge could save the hireling enslaved from the terror of flight or the gloom of the grave, and the star-spangled banner in triumph doth wave over the land of the free and the home of the brave. And so he paints that picture of doom, of terror, of death, of black bodies. He didn't care about everyone who was in this country equally or in an equitable manner. And for a league that is 74.2% black, you would think that the NBA would be able to take a step back and say, this song and forcing our players to put their hands across their chest and stand for this is an insult to their ancestors, to their very beings. And I think that we don't think about it that deeply. And T-Shaw, I loved how you were talking about how, surprised your students still are, because I think that when we talk about legacy, when our grandchildren, our great grandchildren look back on the state of this country, they're going to be like, why did y'all ever think that was a good idea? You know what I'm saying?
I hope so. I hope they're that far.
Yeah, as do I. You know what I'm saying? And I am honored to be a part of the generation that is hopefully pushing and making the country that uncomfortable. But also shout out to Mark Cuban for being a white, straight billionaire man saying, hey, no, I don't see why I have to do this. Y'all don't even do it at jobs that aren't dealt in, athletics and entertainment. Like, I don't see why we have to do it. And yes, there's systemic racism in this country. And I don't want to say shout out to him, like giving him a cookie, because that should be his go-to thing to do anyway if he cares about human beings. But it's just disappointing. It's just disappointing to see, like you said. So I feel you in terms of feeling a little bit hurt and feeling like, dang, NBA, even you have your politics that a white supremacist structure forces you to uphold,
Absolutely. And I think it's also important to point out that I think it is also a rule in the NBA that you can't kneel during the national anthem. Like, most of the time we see that those NBA players are standing. Sometimes they don't put a hand across their chest, but like they have to stand. So it's like, okay, Mark Cuban's like, okay, not everybody wants to be standing, so how about I just not play it? And I think that should be okay. I don't know. I think it's going to take a major culture shift too. Like, I haven't stood for the national anthem since 2016. And it's so crazy because it's like, you don't realize how much of a stand it is until everybody's standing. And I've been there so many times because they play it, and I think you also don't realize how often they play it and how indoctrinated you become. It's like the Pledge of Allegiance. You say it every single day in school. So then it's like the national anthem is played at a lot of big events, graduations, games. I've just been so many random places and it plays, and I'm just like, well, I'm finna sit down. Like, I think so many people look at me, and I think it's going to take a lot of people being able to keep that seat, because I think social pressure makes you want to stand up too. I think it becomes very awkward. I've been with some people that I've organized to sit down, and they see everybody stand, so it's like a reaction. They just stand up. So I think it's important, but I think that hopefully by the time we do have grandchildren, that it's a commonplace, that at least people know, and then they can actively choose to stand if they want to, and not that they're forced and they will be fined if not. The national anthem is crazy, bro.
Right. No, absolutely. And I think that, like you said, things can get really, really awkward, but you don't understand how much you're indoctrinated to it. And I think one of the last things I'll say about this is that, like, if you are holding, I understand that a lot of people think that, hey, if you don't stand for the national anthem, you don't stand for America, you're betraying America. But what we would implore you to think about is, what are some new ways that we can honor America, that actually honor everyone? Because the funny thing is that, especially with the NFL and all the backlash that, Kaepernick and others got for kneeling, the people who were in charge, because Francis Scott Key was also very rich. Yeah. Let's put that out there.
I'm not even surprised.
So what we have to understand too is that the average person and the average white person who would get upset about someone not standing for the national anthem, the people who created it, they wouldn't have had you in mind anyway. You know what I'm saying? They wouldn't have had you in mind regardless. They didn't think of you they didn't think about you a lot either. They just hated black people and minorities more. So if I were you, I would consider new ways that really actually honor every single solitary American that exists today. And it's not to say that you want to, that we hate the country, but we are not going to let America forget about that bad that has outweighed as good, which is still slavery. So like we're going to agitate that system. Right.
Yes.
But, speaking of, being a patriot, being all American and stuff like that, I wanted to talk about the patriot who actually left the Patriots, the patriot who actually left the patriotism, and they won.
Yeah.
They won. T. Shaw, tell us about Mr. Tom Brady. Tell us what happened with him this past weekend.
Bro, it's actually funny because I'm thinking about it, like, the Patriot, he left the Patriot to become a Buccaneer, and a Buccaneer is like a rebel. Like, it's like a pirate. So that's kind of funny. But we know that he's not pirating or rebelling against like republicanism and Trump, right? That's what he should be. But yeah, I think Tom Brady, I still got some smoke for him internally. Y'all probably heard it. That was some shade.
Absolutely.
But like, Tom Brady is one of the most successful athletes to ever play any game of professionalism, right? I think it's crazy because he's won more Super Bowls than any other franchise has. So the Patriots, the Steelers, the Cowboys, he's won more than all of those franchises. So we leave him like he becomes one of the greatest players to ever play football, but also play sports in general. And a lot of people have been discussing, like, is he really the GOAT? And one of the questions I have is kind of like, what qualifies the GOAT? I think that's something we really have to kind of think about it. Like, what do you value in like the greatest athlete of all time? And also, can you compare athletes across like different sports? Like people compare Tom Brady to now MJ. LeBron is entering that conversation. But one that sometimes is left out, but people are actually doing an amazing job of including is Serena Williams. Serena Williams has dominated women's tennis, and at a seasoned age too, right? Like she dominated pretty early in her career, and then came back and started really whooping. Won a major pregnant. So I think that there are a lot of questions that we have to ask. Like, how do you really determine who the greatest athlete of all time is? Scholar P, you got any thoughts?
Yeah. So I definitely agree. It's a very, very interesting conversation because it goes back to what do you value? So I'm going to show Tom some love first. I think Tom didn't come in as highly regarded. I'm pretty sure he was pretty low.
Yeah, seventh round, last round.
Yeah. So, but to see him and his work ethic and him working with Bill Belichick, and then for there to be some doubt from Bill Belichick to him, and then for him to leave, and then for him to not only win a championship. Gronk was talking about retiring, and now he's like, I want no parts of that. Mm-hmm. He got Antonio Brown, who was active bananas.
Crazy.
For the last 2 years. He really got Antonio Brown together and helped him win his first Super Bowl. I haven't heard nothing from and AB, you know what I'm saying? And so, I have to respect his legacy in terms of that work ethic. And I honestly do think that, like with football, all the injuries, the fact that you don't get to play multiple rounds against the same team in the playoffs, like it's really, it's a one and done.
Yep.
Right. Like you have to respect the fact that he has 7 and that he's been 10 times to the Super Bowl. Yeah. You got to respect it from meritocracy level.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, I love that you brought up Serena because when we think about Serena Williams, let's talk about it from a meritocratic standpoint first, right? So if we're comparing them, if it was like a side-by-side comparison, Serena 39, Tom's 43, right? So we can respect Tom there. Serena has won 23 major titles. Tom has won 6.
Wow.
She's had 33 major finals. Tom has had 10 Super Bowl appearances. She's ended the year at number 1 5 times. Tom has ended the season as an MVP 3. She's had 358 career wins. Tom has had 230. And so from a meritocratic like standpoint, you could say it's neck and neck because of the differences in sports. You could say
how many games she gets to play versus how many he does. Yeah.
Right. It can really go either way. If you're looking at strictly numbers and you're not taking the sport into consideration, Serena got Tom. If you're looking at the difficulty and the potential for like major life-threatening career-ending injuries, someone might give it to Tom. But like I've been talking to people and they brought identities into it as well, right? So if I'm not mistaken, Serena Williams came in, highly regarded, maybe a lot of pressure on her, but highly regarded. She was like getting them, you know what I'm saying? This awesome Black woman from Compton really representing. And what does it mean for Tom to rise in the ranks through hard work as a white man when coaches look like him, owners look like him, and he had support from the Patriots all that time versus
and Serena no expectations.
Williams. Right. Versus a Serena Williams who had to navigate as a black woman. Black men came for her, white women came for her, the sports industry came for her, said she was on steroids. And people would just call her out in their own books. I remember tennis players calling her out in their books. And just criticizing her to this day, you know what I'm saying?
On me.
So I think that there's a very powerful conversation to be had about meritocracy and what that looks like, and like what would Serena, if a white woman had done this, what would it mean? And if Tom Brady was a black man who had done this, what would it mean?
Absolutely.
And so I feel like I'm going to put both of them in the top tier of sports athletes of all time, because it's hard for me to compare them because there are so many differences. But I wanted this to be a push towards all of our listeners to think about not just the numbers and not just the accomplishments, but we have to think about their identities and the pressure that they face and the trials and tribulations that they face because of just their identities, something that they can't control. Both of them obviously worked hard to get to wherever they got to, but think about their journeys based on their identities too, because I don't think we as a society consider that when we think about people's journeys enough.
Yeah, and I also just think that made me think about just the impact that these people make on the sport, right? Like, as great as Tom Brady is, and he might be going down as the greatest quarterback ever, I don't know if he's made a tremendous impact on, like, viewers and, like, people that are watching the game and people that are coming into the game. Like, when I think about impact, I think about, like, how Serena has her own style. She has her own flavor. Like, you know when Serena hit the ball, she's letting out that grunt, like that, And she's also inspired a lot of black women to come into the game, right? And it's like more to pick up the sport. Tennis wasn't traditionally a black people or a black woman's sport. Not at all. Not until Serena and Venus came into the game and really changed it. I think about Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan has influenced the whole culture of basketball players that have preceded him, right? He's changed the shoe game. He's changed a lot about the sport itself. Tom Brady, when I think about the most impactful quarterback, I think about Michael Vick. Like, Michael Vick was doing something that was different than everybody else. Tom Brady wins, but he doesn't really change the game. He just does what he's good at. It's really American. Football's an American sport. Like, I think about, he just played the system, right? I think that's why Tom Brady has always been good, because he's never really had his back against the wall. He's always played with a wonderful team built around him, and he knows how to win with the weapons that surrounds him. He's great because he doesn't lose when it matters, and I think that is a quality. But, like, Tom Brady got picked in the 7th round for a reason, because he's not a great athlete. He's an intelligent player. And he's somebody that got some grit to him, some hustle, and he know how to win. I think that's worth something. But I think that identity factor, when you think about, like, the impact, because it's touching much more than just some. I guess some little white boys that's, like, want to play football. Like, some people might look up to Tom Brady, but I've never heard somebody say, like, oh, I want to be a quarterback because Tom Brady made me want to. It's like, I think about Michael Jordan, I think about Allen Iverson, I think about Serena Williams, and I think identity has a lot to do with that. And maybe it's because I'm a young black boy, right? And I had never been introduced to tennis, but I would sit down and watch a whole tennis match. So I think that their identities bring in a whole new audience, and it allows the sport to grow. And that's why the NBA makes so much money. That's why tennis is growing as a sport. Soccer is growing as a sport, because the audience is growing, and there's people that look like us that we feel represent us in that sport.
Absolutely. I remember seeing all the black celebrities at Serena's games, and you know that they're there because of Serena, and it just changes, and, like, all the memes, and then Black Twitter takes hold of it. Exactly. You know what I'm saying? And like, it's just so much power. And, like, I love what you said about Serena, because I think about when she faced Naomi Osaka, right? Yeah. And she was literally facing someone that she had inspired. Yeah. And it's like, that inspiration was manifested. And it's so crazy, because it's like, in football, you could, some argue that if Aaron Rodgers had been with the Patriots and now with the Buccaneers, the question becomes, would he have won just as much, less,
Absolutely.
or even more than Tom Brady, right?
Absolutely.
So I think, like you said, Tom Brady is great at utilizing what he has and making and coming through when it counts. But the question becomes, could you drop someone else in? I'm gonna go out on the record and say it. I feel like Kevin Durant gets a lot of credit for winning those two with the Warriors, but I feel like you could have put a lot of players in that position, and the Warriors were so good that they were going to win regardless. But that's neither here or there. I don't know if you can just drop someone else in Serena's position because it's such a one-on-one sport.
Absolutely.
Like Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers never really get to go one-on-one. They get to face each other's defenses, right? Right. And even basketball, it's like Kevin Durant and LeBron can go at each other offensively and defensively, but you don't get that one-on-one in football. And so I think that once again, like what do you value? Because both of them brought something so incredible to the game, which probably will not be replicated anytime soon. And so I think we got to leave it to you all as the people, but we want you all to hopefully open your mind up and consider some different factors, because it's not just black and white, no pun intended. You know what I'm saying?
That was a bar. And before we transition off real quick, I just want to take a quick shot at KD too. Like, bro, KD was up 3-1 on the Warriors and he lost. That's crazy to me. Like, you lost to him, then you joined their team. Like, I think KD could have been one of the best players ever. He probably still will be, but we now will never consider him one of like the greatest right now, right? Because it's like, to get your rings, you have to go play with Steph Curry and the boys, like the other top 10 players. And it's like he cemented his legacy, but also he cemented his status as someone that couldn't beat LeBron without 5 other like stars.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think with KD, it's like, I think that's why I was disappointed too, because it's just like, people are going to be looking at you and make like Eli Manning has made jokes about it.
And it hurts him too.
Yeah, bad. I remember Russell going like what's the GM of the Warriors, who he had just won a championship for, was making jokes, and it's just like, that's such a shame, because like you're a beast. You're a beast. You're one of the greatest basketball players. It might have been better for your legacy to do something else, but if he can win with Brooklyn, I'm gonna give him his credit. If he can win with Brooklyn when he's the leader, when all of it's on him, but right now he's not in the same camp as LeBron to me, because LeBron can go anywhere, everywhere LeBron is gone. There's a title. Period.
He creates that culture.
Right. And so I think that once again, when we talk about legacy, how do you want it? And I think that he took the shorter way to it. But that way is not filled with as much glory as the grind that someone like a LeBron did. I remember, what was it? The Miami Heat, Dwayne Wade and Shaq. That's when I started getting into the NBA culture and stuff like that. And like, they had an impact on me. That's when I started, playing ball. You know what I'm saying? But with KD, I'm just like, bro, get it together, because you still got time, because you're that amazing.
He do.
And so get your legacy game up, brother. Let's go. Let's show them something if you really about that life. But shout out to all of them. But as we're speaking about sort of like GOAT status and like, just legends in general, it harkens me back to what awesome music producer Swiss Beats said. He said that in order to be the GOAT, you sort of have to lose it all and get it back at least 4 to 5 times. And I was like, Swiss, you crazy. I don't know of anyone who's lost it and gotten it back 4 to 5 times. But, this makes me think about someone who lost $1 billion enterprise that they helped build up, but who recently got it back. And that's Nick Cannon. All right. Yeah. So for those of you who don't know, Nick Cannon, he had made some anti-Semitic comments on his podcast called Cannon Class. And he was basically saying and sort of paralleling the Jewish folks with the Illuminati, right? Yeah. So saying that they were sort of a part of the Illuminati and this, that, and the third. And so, people started severing ties with him. And Nick sued Viacom, who owned the right to Wildin' Out, because he got fired from Wildin' Out. They tried to give his Wildin' Out star,
DC Young Fly. That was kind of wild.
They tried to replace one black man with another, and DC, like a real one, said, "I'm not doing that because Nick gave me my opportunity when no one else was giving me my opportunity." And then finally, Nick and Viacom have come back to an agreement, and now everything's sort of, I guess, pieced up, and he's back on Wildin' Out and running the show. But I mean that whole thing was just a tumultuous thing for me, T. But I want to ask you, like, what does it say about people being canceled? Like, does it say this is sort of legitimize what we think of as like cancel culture? Because it seemed like it wasn't even black people who canceled him. It was these corporations, and probably white corporations that did it. So what does Nick's situation make you think about?
Yeah, I think his comments specifically were really tricky, because it was like, I think black people are held to a higher standard than a lot of white people are when it comes to anti-Semitism, right? I think that, like, I even think about there was a lyric in Jay-Z's, what was the, OJ, the song I'm talking about?
Story of OJ, yeah.
Yes,
Story
yes.
of OJ?
He said something about, like, some Jewish people own some of the banks. I can't think of the lyric off rip, but I remember a lot of people were calling him anti-Semitic. And I think that, like, he does in those comments play into tropes, but there is some truth to those tropes. And I think that, like, with Nick Cannon, he got a little too, like, far-fetched. He fell into a lot of conspiracy theories, and it's like stuff that we kind of commonly hear around the barbershop, like old heads that really don't have good sources but are still very, like, knowledgeable and wise. It's like when you're looking for something to think about, and instead of thinking about, like, real things that we can find, like COINTELPRO, and, like, things that the government are actually doing to our communities, they fall into, like, kind of the Illuminati type talk and those different things. And I think he said something about, like, the Rothschilds, and I think that there's a lot of speculation because they own a lot of money, and we know that people with money are able to, like, influence a lot of politics. But it's like the way that they go about it, right? He's not following the clues. He a little information and you just kind of add a conspiracy on top. So I think that that's hard, and I think that then black people are seen as anti-Semitic, and he lost everything that he built. But then we see him coming back, and I think that's good. So, yeah, it does bring up questions about, like, what cancel culture really is. I've had this conversation with my girlfriend a few times, and I see a lot of people on social media say, like, oh, cancel culture is not a thing. Like, look at all of these people that still have careers. And I'm like, well, look at all these people that don't. Like, ask Daniel Caesar, is cancel culture a thing? Like, he might be making a little bit of money, but, like, Daniel Caesar had, like, the Black Wedding Game on lock. He would have had that on lock for like 20 years because he makes an amazing love song. But after he told Black Twitter, he told Black Twitter to cancel him because I think he said he let white people say the N-word, and they was telling him, they was calling him out instead of calling him in. So he said, Black Twitter, cancel me then. And they sure did, because his next album flopped. I think about even Chris Brown. I know Chris Brown still has a career, and he's still, like, he makes hits. Like, No Guidance was a bop. Like, people still love Chris Brown, but I think that, like, his career trajectory completely changed. So for me, when I'm thinking about cancel culture, that's kind of what I'm thinking of, because there are people that they do take a hit. I don't think it's permanent. There's a lot of people that, like, they bounce back, but I don't know if they bounce back stronger. And I think that that's where I really want to look at cancel culture, because I think it's almost impossible to straight up cancel somebody unless you have privilege and power. Like, Colin Kaepernick has been canceled. Like, he's been blackballed from the NFL since he's taken that knee. He has not played a down. Like, he has not been on nobody's team. He's better than they be picking up people from the CFL, the XFL, the QTL. Like, I don't know. Like, boy, yo, neighborhood pickup league before Colin Kaepernick. And it's like, but he's effectively blackballed. So it's like, who can really cancel somebody is like people with power, people with money. So I think, like, Nick Cannon was canceled for a little bit, and I think that it's a good thing that there was agreement reached. So I think that there's a gray area when we talk about cancel culture. Do you have any examples, or what do you think about cancel culture in general?
Yeah, well, let me just say this. First of all, I felt hurt for Nick that like he was able to lose $1 billion venture that he helped build up, and it made me think about entrepreneurship and ownership versus corporations and depending on them. And you can actually go back at some of our old episodes and like listen to our conversation about that. But like that made me feel crazy. But I think that when we talk about cancellation, we also have to think about the fact that like Nick Cannon brought a rabbi on his show after he was getting that backlash. You saw him having the conversations. You saw him genuinely like open his arms and say, "Hey, look, I'm willing to learn." So I think about someone like a Kevin Hart who sort of refused to apologize about the remarks about LGBTQIA folks he made on Twitter years ago because he's like, "I've already apologized," and like because he owns a lot of his own stuff, he just sort of kept moving even when he wasn't doing the Oscars no more. Yeah, so he was like, "Cool." But then I look at like a Chrisette Michele. You sing at Trump's inauguration. People are coming at this woman so hard that she has a miscarriage. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? It's
true.
So, you know, and then you think about the extremists. So your Bill Cosby's, your R. Kelly's.
Yeah.
There was an article that happened about 2 years ago or about a year and a half ago where Ayanna was saying that she refuses. Ayanna is the fix your life woman. For those of you who don't know, she comes and helps families, celebrities, whoever fix their life and become a better person for the people they love. But she said that R. Kelly's unfixable because he's still going through things that make him unfixable. So I don't know if there are rules and regulations in terms of cancel culture. If you find yourself on the block of cancel culture, what it seems like is that if you genuinely apologize, if you maybe go on a talk show or bring in the communities that you've offended, you try to be more genuine. Yeah, if you try to be more genuine, then it works out because you see Daniel Caesar being like cocky, like, "Oh, I got this," or even at Chrisette Michele, like she got a lot of warnings beforehand. It's not like she said something crazy. It was like she had months to think about why this was hurtful and she felt like she was going to unify everyone. But it was like, Chrisette, this is bigger than you. This is hundreds of years of pain being manifested in this man. So you feel like you're Black Jesus, or I really should say Jesus because Jesus is Black, but that's what you feel.
And she was like, a token. No. And it's like she caught the L, and it's like she caught the stray, and it's like she didn't even have to do it. And it's like I guess what I listen to you, I'm thinking about just like it has a lot to do when somebody's getting canceled. It has a lot to do with who the audience of that person is, and then like how do we feel about the people that were offended. I think that those are like the two questions we have to ask. So I think about like Daniel Caesar, he offended Black people, and Black people are his audience. He can cancel, like we can cancel you. I think like we think about Kevin Hart, I would say largely there's a lot of Black people that don't really consume Kevin Hart's stuff. There's a large part that do, but he's very just mainstream in general. So to cancel him, it would have to be a portion of the population that was offended to like cancel him. I don't exactly remember his comments, but it was about the LGBT community, right?
Yeah, and I want to say it was about his son, him not wanting his son to be gay. And I've seen some of his popular stand-up specials talk about that too. But I love your point because even someone like a Dave Chappelle, you know what I'm saying? He made some comments on his special, but it was like
about trans folks.
But I've also seen that same comedian, try to talk with people at some of the local comedy clubs about it, say that, he's not perfect in it. And he told people, hey, look, you're tuning in to me. And I think that Dave is also on a more mainstream level. And there's this like, I guess, trait of genuineness that you see with Dave, where he's like, I know I'm not perfect.
What you see is what you get. And he's not actively problematic. I think also as a comedian, I think that there is also a leeway. And I think that what you're saying, I completely get. Like with Kevin Hart, I think some people find him genuine too. And I think that like again, like trans folk and like the LGBT community are marginalized. It's not a large portion of the population. So I think it's hard. Like, unless there's a lot of allies on that front, then it's going to be hard to cancel a more mainstream person. It's like a lot of them have cult following. So it's going to be hard to effectively tarnish. Like, you can kind of tarnish their legacy, but I don't know if you can really hurt their pockets. But maybe that's what cancel culture really has something to do with. It's like the tarnish on your legacy. It's like you won't be perfect. And I think that that's a large part of like what makes people the GOAT, or people kind of like exalt to the top. Like, yeah, they might have money, but there's always kind of like a mark on their like resume.
Right. Because I love the point you made about the audience, because I think about someone like a Tory Lanez.
Yeah.
Bro, your audience is black women. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
any
absolutely.
Black man who listens to your stuff is to seduce a partner. Like, that's it. It's to dance a dirty wine in the club. So like, how you gonna shoot Meg? Like, and like, obviously, even if black women weren't your audience, you shouldn't be shooting black women. You shouldn't be shooting women. Yeah. But like, you literally shot your demographic.
Yeah.
Like, no pun intended, he shot himself in the foot. You know what I'm saying? In shooting Megan, like, I don't
that
understand.
That was a bar.
Like, I just don't get it. So like, and that goes to your point, Chrisette Michele offended black people. I think that when Nick Cannon says what he says, black people are like, there's some truth in that, but like, you went too far versus like, oh, you were coming at black people. Yeah. Right? R. Kelly, black women.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have been molesting and sexually abusing black women for decades. Bill Cosby. Yeah, there might have been some white women that.
Yeah, there was a good amount of white women. It was a good amount of white women.
Yeah.
And it's like, everybody loved the Cosby Show, and just Bill Cosby was like a legend like that. He was mainstream. So it's like.
Right. I was at an intersectionality event that Kimberly Crenshaw was hosting, and I saw a woman of color who was a model who used to have a drug habit that Bill Cosby tried to drug. And so, unfortunately, Bill Cosby's trying to get at everybody.
Oh, absolutely. And that's disgusting.
And these are the same women who are proud, because remember, Bill Cosby's a family man too. So these women are probably the ones who are encouraging their kids, their family, to watch the Cosby Show or A Different World. And also and even before that, he was coming at black single mothers who had children out of wedlock and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So like, all of these young things
black men
combined,
too, calling them thugs, putting pants up.
So yeah, I think I love that audience point you made, because it's really about knowing your audience, knowing the people who rock with you heavy, and making sure it's not just about not offending them, because sometimes you might need to offend your audience to be on the side of justice. Yeah. But being mindful and cognizant of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know
absolutely.
What I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's just really, really really tough. But is there anything else in terms of cancel culture that like makes you think about?
I just kind of bringing it back to Nick Cannon. I think we just have to be very mindful of like the things that we're consuming and the things that we're putting out into the world. Like, I think you want to be knowledgeable of what you're talking about. Like, here on Brewing Black, we try to be very informed. We bring in experts. Y'all know, if y'all been listening to the last few episodes, y'all know that we're really trying to try hard to like learn and study the things that we talk about, because we don't want to give y'all false information or quote bad sources. And I think the one thing that really got Nick Cannon in trouble is that like he really was supporting Minister Farrakhan and like the Nation of Islam. And like, I think that the Nation of Islam has had a lot of anti-Semitic points to be made, right? They said a lot of harmful things. And I think that him aligning himself in those comments, even though his comments might not have been that bad, because I think it was just standard hotepery. Like, I think that like we know some hoteps, and it's like hoteps aren't the worst people. Like, they just don't have the best sources. It's like they're curious, and they're like, what's the word when you just like, I'm trying to think of the word when you are kind of apprehensive of like information coming in, like you're skeptical. Yeah. I think they have a healthy amount of skeptical, but then they fall into the wrong things to like kind of feel that like the knowledge that they're looking for. And I feel like that's kind of what happened in Nick Cannon. So I guess I just want to advise the people out there, like, make sure when you're retweeting things on Twitter and different things like that, that you're reading it. I think you just want to be very mindful of the content that you're putting out and the messages that you're sending to people. Because I think that that's the only way we can, one, like avoid being canceled, and two, like avoid making sure that you respect respect the people around you and respect yourself with like the content you put out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that I love what you were saying about research, because it's like, when we come on the show, like we try to be as accurate as possible. We're going to give you statistics. We might give you any bit of like other outside of information that's valid to confirm what we're saying to you all, because we care about our impact and our reach.
Yeah.
And it as we think about like these powerful Black leaders, I think that, someone who comes to mind, someone who, actually, you know what? Before we transition, I actually want to talk about just the fact that if you're trying to like find stuff, and for all these brothers who might think, hey, I know there's racism in the world, but when I articulate it, it comes off as conspiracy theorists, literally go to Google Scholar, put Google Scholar on your phone. Ooh. Like I'm writing a dissertation right now, and you feel like you know everything, but like there are so many minds that have thought like you, that have done research, and like you can actually go and cite them. Literally say, Dr. Johnson did this study in 1989, bro, and like he found this and da 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 da. And so like we want to encourage brothers to like really be scholarly, because it's like you can really find research and information on just about anything on Google Scholar. Yeah. And so, I do want to encourage people, whether it's a Google Scholar or just doing some research on articles, brothers, like really tap into that, because I think that there are a lot of great minds who are thinking like you're thinking, and who can help you make sure you stay off the conspiracy roadway. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Scholar advice from my man, Scholar P. And that's for the ladies too. I know that was reference to the fellas, but that's for the ladies too. Anybody you listening, or my non-binary folk too, like, make sure y'all doing that research, and that is a great place to start.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And speaking of research, me and T-Shaw did some research of our own, some visual research, this past weekend. And, there were some great movies that came out there, and, movies that sparked a lot of great conversation, debate, what have you. And when we think about these powerful Black leaders, like I was saying earlier, I think about people like Malcolm X, who was someone who came with his facts. You could tell he was scholarly. You could tell that he was always thinking on such a deep level for the betterment of Black people. And I don't think he gets his credit for it. I don't think his legacy is appreciated enough in America. And shout out to Regina King. She had her first directorial debut in a movie called One Night in Miami. For those of you who don't know, One Night in Miami is about this one night after Muhammad Ali being a 22-year-old. I believe it was February 25th or 26th of 1964. He won his championship, or retained it, and himself, Malcolm X, it was Joe Brown, and Sam Cooke. All of them were together in a hotel, and they were talking and really sort of fellowshipping as young black men who are all at the peak of their game. To give you all more context, Malcolm X died less than a year after that night. Sam Cooke died in about less than 9 months after that night. Yeah. So these people were at the peak of their careers. And we just wanted to talk about the movie and why we appreciated it real quick, because we have to give not only those actors their credits, but Regina King her credit. So T-Shaw, what did you think about the movie, and what did you sort of take away from it?
Bro, I loved it. I really loved it. I think it was a phenomenal film. It was so good. I was so captivated the whole time. And my favorite parts about it is that it made these people, well, one, it taught me about like a history lesson, like Black history. I didn't even know these people really rocked with each other like that. I knew that Malcolm X and Muhammad Ali were close. But I didn't know about Jim Brown. I didn't know about Sam Cooke, right? And I think that it made these people more multifaceted for me. I know that like Malcolm X is kind of like a hard ass in it, and he's like this revolutionary, and he's kind of squarish, like I don't drink, we're gonna eat some ice cream, or we're gonna talk about our good God, but I think there was like parts of the film that made him so much more multifaceted, like the fact that he really loved taking pictures. Like I think that like I just had a good conversation with a friend, and we were just talking about how a lot of people in Black history, when we learn about them, or even like Trayvon Martin and the people that died, like they're just kind of seen as martyrs and these icons, but we don't really humanize them. Like we don't think about like what they really love to do. So shout out to Mason for that conversation. And I thought about that as I was kind of watching the film, because it's like, Malcolm X loved taking pictures. Like I would have never thought that. Like you just think that he's just like, power to the people, the white man devil, and like it's like no, he was a human being. He had his views, and he was very like staunch in them. But like I think there were other like aspects of him. Sam Cooke, how we see how he is a capitalist in a way, not completely, but like he is playing a game, and it's like he sees his way of fighting back, and his revolution is like Black capitalism. And I think that it's okay in that sense, because it's like at least he had an aim. He knew what he wanted, right? Like I could agree a little bit more with Malcolm X, but it's like also he did own his own masters. Like he was selling his songs to other people, and he was making money off of like kind of ghostwriting, or not even really ghostwriting. I guess they were doing covers of his songs and stuff like that. And then we know A Change Gonna Come comes out a little later too. So it's like he's being critiqued for making this music for white people, but he's like, I'm making my Black money. And then like he put out this revolutionary song that really hits you in the soul every time you hear it. So I think that those aspects like really stood out to me in the film, and I really enjoyed that. What about you? What was like some first things that stood out to you?
The first scene when Jim Brown goes and he meets with one of the people from the Browns, and
like the owner.
Yeah, the owner, and the owner fellowships with him, but then doesn't allow him to come into his house. Like yeah. He literally is like, yeah, we don't let niggas in here. And that moment was it was like a gut punch. And I feel like that's how racism really works today. Like we love y'all as long as you stay in this particular position.
Shucking and jiving, entertaining us.
Right, but you can't have access to the main house. You know what I'm saying? And that main house looks like a lot of different things today. And that scene was crazy to me. But I loved it because, yes, they were in the hotel for a night, but they took you on such a philosophical journey, right? I think that it was a very, very healthy visual look of 4 top-notch Black men coming together and having a very intellectual conversation. There were no women involved. There was no partying and drinking involved until the very end where they're at that bar, which is a very brief moment. And like you said, you really got to see like the pros and cons of each of them. And it goes back to the quote we were saying earlier: did the good outweigh the bad? Like Malcolm was this great leader, but he seemed to come off as a little bit judgmental, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Holier than thou. Like he wasn't thugging and pipping and trapping like back in the day.
Absolutely. And Sam Cooke, like there was some elitism there with him, right? So like, I don't want to stay at the Black Hotel. I don't want my stuff to get robbed, right? Like I love Hollywood and chasing the women, right? And Jim Brown was trying to figure out, all right, well, I'm a football player, but like I'm doing all this stuff for them, breaking my back for them. Should I be an actor? Is that who Jim Brown is? Can I make more money just doing this? And should I? And then Muhammad Ali trying to like come to grips with, what does it mean to be a Muslim, and does he want to embrace that, and when and how, and the politics of it all. So there was just all these different things happening, but at the same time, it wasn't scattered. And fun fact, allegedly, Regina King had some very, very famous people who obviously wanted to play these stellar roles, but she said that no one was going to do it unless they auditioned. And so obviously some of those people might have dropped out. Yeah. But it made me feel Yeah, like it made me feel even more confident about the story that these actors were going to portray, because they knew this was their shot and they actually had to audition against other people to like make this happen. So I just think it was such a well done film. And like I said, my favorite part of it was just seeing Black men come together, and it wasn't about partying and turning up. It was about like respectful disagreements, heated arguments, but at the end of the day, love for each other. Yeah. And I can't remember the last time I really saw that on television where it wasn't like toxic or about a woman or something like that. Like these they went at each other hard verbally, right? But at the end of the day, it was like, I only come at you so hard because I got that much love and respect for you. And so, and so I don't even like, I'm so not used to that as a Black man in terms of what I see in the media. Yeah. Like I got brothers like you in my life who support me and got love for me. But like, when do we get to see that visually represented in story on the big screen?
Yes. I think that you just made the greatest point, because it's like, it's kind of reflective of my life, at least the Black men I have in my life. Like, these are the conversations we have. Like, I mean, sometimes they're not nearly as tough. Okay. Like the stakes were a little bit higher with them. But like it felt real. Like we know when it's like close friends, like you can really say some of those things. You really can. And it's not that it's right, but it's like sometimes you hurt. Like, you know, we talked about going for the jugular, and they went for the jugular in some ways, but never in like a super disrespectful way that we often see in media. And I think that was important. And I'm just so glad that you brought that up, because that really reminded me of that, right? How rare that is to see, but how real it felt. And that's why it was so captivating, because it was like, it was them really just like thinking about life, really philosophizing. Like sometimes it would be two of them going off, doing something else to talk to each other, the other two in a room talking to each other. And it's like, we got to really feel like we got to know them. Like really, like we know their ideologies for the most part, their personalities, because we didn't really live in that time, right? We didn't get to really experience it. So we get to see just like highlights of their lives, the writings that they left behind, the videos that they left behind. But I think in that, we got to see them come to life, like those ideologies, why they think that, and like how their experience has colored why they're thinking, like how it's colored what they think right now. Or right then in that time. So I really love that. So I appreciate you explaining that. And then I just also thought about how funny it was, that it felt like for the film, Muhammad Ali, or Cassius Clay at the time, was in a situationship with like Islam, like the Nation of Islam. It was like he knew it was good for him. It made him feel good. It made him feel good before his fight. He knew it was like it for him, and he felt like he needed it, but he didn't want to commit to it yet. He didn't know he was getting the benefits, but like Malcolm was like, bro, you gonna do it. And it sucked too, because I don't know exactly if this is exactly how it went down, but it's like I knew they were close, and I knew that they ended up splitting, and I knew that he ended up following Minister Farrakhan, and we see where the nation is now. And we saw how Malcolm kind of explained that he was looking to build something else, build something new, and he would want him to be a part of it with him. But he was like, if you think I'm doing anything shady or I have my own motives, like, don't come. And I thought that was real, because it was like he really let him know. He was like, I understand how it can feel, and I'm sorry I like caught you off guard, but like if you don't believe me, I'm not going to try to force you down this path with me. So I really appreciated that part of the movie. And those were really some moments that stood out. And then also the chain gang thing. I think that's why that moment allowed me to understand why Malcolm was so passionate and was so at Sam's throat. Because he was like, I saw the power of the people through you. I saw how you channeled that. And I know that your potential was so great and you could really recreate that. And it's like, I think that's why he was genuinely disappointed. And then he saw that a change gonna come. And it's like, that's when it hit his soul. He was like, he still got it. And I might have been too hard. So yeah, overall, bro, that film, like I didn't even realize how much I loved the film until he just started talking about it.
Yeah. I was just thoroughly impressed in every way. Regina King, like, give that woman her flowers. Like, she's been a part of Black history in terms of her acting career, but this directorial debut was just amazing cast. It was just great. So shout out to her, shout out to the cast, shout out to everyone involved in that project. There was another project that's also came that everyone is talking about. So we shall dive in. Malcolm and Marie. I want you to talk about how you felt about it. For those of you who don't know, the brilliant Zendaya and the brilliant John David Washington were in a movie called Malcolm and Marie, looking at one night in time of a filmmaker and his partner, and looking at the trials and tribulations of their relationship, all coming to a head in a night argument that lasted all night. It was shot in black and white, and I have some thoughts, but I'm gonna push it over to you first, T. Shaw, but not before I say that Zendaya, John, y'all acted y'all tails off. Y'all's talent is A-level. But I mean, it was something that I knew already. So I'm gonna say that, and I'm gonna let you sort of give your review before I give my thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I just really appreciated Malcolm and Marie. I know that there's a lot of criticism. I know that the movie critiques and like the reviewers really ate it up, or they didn't see it as that strong of a movie. But I think that Zendaya Coleman and John David Washington was in their acting bag like no other. I think that the amazing part of the story, or about how they shot this film, is that I know at times the monologues feel long, but it's because they are. This is a film unlike others where they didn't have that big of a cast, and they just allowed them to act. And I think that that's the beauty of this film. So if you don't appreciate it, I might need you to watch it again. Because they were filming, like, often they do like 2-minute takes, 3-minute takes, different scenes, right? But they just allowed the camera to roll. They just allowed them to get into character, and they really embodied these people. I think the beauty of this film is that you believe them, that you really believe that they are these people, and that these are the lives that they are living, and that this is how they feel. And I really love that. It's like they let them go on for like 7, 8, 9, 12-minute takes. Like, you know how you really got to be acting, not to break scene, to really like feel those emotions. Like, bro, I can't hype that movie up enough. I really love the angles and the shots that they were shooting. I love the black and white. Some people don't like that. I think some people watch movies for action, that it's in one home the whole time. It's oddly shot. It's in black and white. It's long monologues. But I love how the plot unfurls as the conversations are had, as they get deeper into their feelings and deeper into the alcohol. Like, they let it go and they let it flow. Like, and at times it is toxic, right? But I think the beauty of the film is that I think it is so realistic, in the sense that, yeah, some people might have slapped him. Like, some people, like, the outcome could have been different, but there are some couples that this just might be, right? I think the fact that they can go through all of this in one night and then go to bed with each other, I think it's so realistic, because I think that we have all probably been in something so toxic and we've just decided to stay. We've really sat there and contemplated, damn, should I even be in this? Is this good for me? And it's like, you can really feel like you contemplating life, and then you go home and you do it all again. So I think it's like, I think that there are so many like realistic moments in this, that like, that's what I love about it. Like, maybe the story isn't real, or maybe the plot isn't the strongest, but like the acting and how they brought that plot to life and how they presented us the story, I love. And I'll always hype this movie up.
Touche. Good brother. You know what, y'all, I gotta be honest, right? I came in with my thoughts. Me and T-Shaw had a great conversation beforehand. So, you know, thank God for T-Shaw, because before my conversation with you brother, I was gonna come in here today and really tear this movie to shreds. So let's where do we start? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to juxtapose it, because I think it goes back to what we were saying before. When you look at a Serena and a Tom Brady, what do you value? What were you looking for? What do you expect? All that, right?
Yeah.
So mind you, I had watched another movie called Young Promising Woman. If you all haven't seen that, I highly recommend you go and see that. And then I had also watched One Night in Miami, and it was a different type of journey, right? And it was a different type of climax, and there was a different type of progression. And so I think that going into Malcolm and Marie, I think I expected that type of feel, and maybe that's not what that movie was for in the first place.
Yeah.
And so for me, I'm watching these other movies back to back, and so when I'm coming to Malcolm and Marie, I'm like, yo, it's Dave Coleman, it's John David Washington, like I'm ready, because I respect them for their craft, each of them individually for their craft so much. So I was really excited to see what happened when they got together. I think for me, the acting was superb. Like you do sort of get enveloped in it. I think for me, I would have loved to see the summation of all those things that they reveal, right? Because they had those liners, and I was like, dang, they cutting deep. And I was like,
jugular.
From the jugular. And then I was upset, because I was just like, after y'all bared y'all souls to each other, like y'all are going right back into it, or it doesn't seem like there's any resolution. But to your point, I will say that, like, even though that's still something that I didn't prefer, it might be way more realistic, like you said, for you all to have that bash, because I've definitely done that with exes, and then y'all go to bed and then y'all rewind. You know what I'm saying? It's a love-hate relationship constantly, right? That no one else gets to see. They were at a premiere before they went to the house, and I'm sure everything looked fine, right? And so for me, while I do wish that there was some type of summation, I can understand, there not being one, because that's also realistic. What I didn't like was, and I think that the fact that there's a white writer for this story, like also colors this for me. But in the movie, and did we say spoiler alerts? Did we say that?
I'm gonna put it on the little timestamp, because we probably should.
Yeah. All right, spoiler alert. Whatever. So there was. Malcolm always talked about how he wanted his work to not be looked at through a lens of race, or at least via that interpretation from that white woman, which I sort of get, because like Black people should be allowed to be humans, but at the same time, I think I juxtaposed that desire from him versus what Malcolm was saying, what Sam Cooke was saying in One Night in Miami, and I was just like, bro, we don't even get to be neutral. That's not even how none of this goes. And even Marie was saying that too was sort of echoing those sentiments. So like part of it for me too was like that conversation, even though Black intellectuals aren't a monolith, I was like, some of this stuff just doesn't seem like what I would talk about with UT Shaw or some of my other Black intellectual friends. And so for me, I was just like, I think I probably would have given it a little bit more leniency had it been like a Black writer, because I would have been like, well, I can really tap into, maybe you have some Black friends who do speak like this about these types of things. But I've never known of any Black person who was just like, yo, why are we looking at everything through the lens of race? Not, or at least I don't know one that seemed to have a more social justice oriented mindset than Malcolm.
But I feel that. Right. That makes a lot of sense. Because I know some coons that like would have felt that way, but they would have had that background knowledge like that he showed that he had. Yeah. Malcolm was, it was obvious that he was a very social, conscientious brother. And so for me, it was like, if you're going to be mad at the white lady, be mad at her for something else, because I'm sure your smart self can think about other things to be mad at. But like, I don't think that Malcolm would ever want someone to not see the race and the sex and the intersectionality of all those things coming together in his work. So like, I had an issue with that. And then of course the monologues, like you said, but I think that that's only because I was expecting some form of like action, because like you said before, like they did reveal the plots in these like
gut wrenching, chest blowing moments, whether it but they were cutting each other below their feet, forget below the belt. You know what I'm saying? They were hitting the ground. And I was like, oh my God. Like when Marie grabbed that knife and started tapping it on the floor, I was like, this is it. This is it. Some stuff was about to happen. You know, when Malcolm was talking about all the women he had done in the heart-shaped pool, you know what I'm saying? I was like, all right, this is the moment. And so it's a tough thing for me because the film, I think I wanted a film where they said all of that stuff, that most of the stuff that you said, like that all that happened, and then there was some type of summation, because my heart felt for Marie, because Malcolm just seems like a jerk.
An emotional like, terrorist, she said.
Yeah, literally emotional terrorist. And I was just like, so like so what's up, Marie? But to your point, I think the reality is that we know that when things are, you know, when things are domestically abusive in relationships, it can take survivors up to 9 times to like try to leave. And so I think one thing that, you know, for all you Malcolm and Marie lovers, one thing that T-Shaw did tell me was that like, hey, Scholar P, this was one night. Yeah. This is one night. We had no idea. Maybe the next day she packs up all her shit and goes. You know what I'm saying? We have no idea. And part of maybe this movie was also part of a mystique that you had to appreciate. Right? Like this idea that we don't know what's going to happen afterwards, but like they've made us want to. They made us invested, or they captured us for one night. Like that was the real film that should have gotten the praise, not the film about her life, but this as a cinematic experience, this exchange between these two actors, right? So like it's a tough thing. So like Malcolm and Marie, I can definitely appreciate it for what it's worth, and hopefully for what that writer and the producers intended for it to be. But I would say in the future, maybe just a little bit of a summation, like you saw in One Night in Miami. Look at how much Sam Cooke went back and forth with Malcolm, but then after that, he made a change is gonna come. Like, and it was like all that conversation, all of that back and forth, and like some of their stuff was toxic too, right? They were hit below the belt too, absolutely. But what you saw was that afterwards, there was something that like came out of it that you could grasp, that you could hold on to, and you could be like, that character grew. Like that character needed this night. And for Malcolm and Marie, I was just like, the beauty of it is that you don't know how that night impacted them. The negative part about it is like, which also means I don't know if they just went on like regular. But I'll say this one more time. It is probably more realistic, and that's probably the saddest part of it all.
Because I was gonna say that's kind of the truth. Is like not everybody grows from situations. Like not everybody has tough conversations and walk away with the lesson that they were supposed to, and they've accepted it and they do something positive with it. A lot of the times that don't happen, and I think that's what I really love about the film. And one thing that like really stands out to me that I had a good conversation with my girlfriend about is like, it was also very toxic because it felt like there was some type of like owing or some type of like not really ownership, but it's like I felt as if that they both felt that she owed him her life. Right. I think that's one thing that was kind of like under the surface. It's like, cause she was on bad times, and she either had committed suicide or something had happened. Right. I forgot exactly what he said. Something about the scissors and something else, right?
Yeah, like nail scissors to his wrist.
Yeah. So it's like he saved her life, and it's like you think about like, wow, how could she stand this? It's like from both of their perspectives, it's like you're not here without me, like saving you. And I think that's a very negative way to think about it. But I think it's like it's just all their relationship is kind of rooted in trauma. I think that's what I think about. Is like, because there's also real love there. I think we're talking about all the negative parts that they kind of shared throughout the movie, but like that was also sandwiched in between like these beautiful moments they had together, of them really enjoying each other's company and being really good for each other, and really like I don't know, it seemed like there's real genuine love there, but it's like that there's something deeper seated underneath that hasn't really been like uprooted and exercised, so that like it's like I don't know. Like, it's like there's a haunting still there. Like there's still some pain and trauma there that hasn't been like pulled out of the house, so we can't live like this peaceful life that we should. We still being haunted by this ghost.
No, absolutely. And I love that point that you made, because I think that something that should be taken from Malcolm and Marie is this idea that like you can love someone, but it doesn't mean you should be with someone. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like y'all can have a genuine love for each other, but like, you know, you might, but like you might have told me about the scene, but like, Zendaya literally, there's one where there's a part of the movie where she's like, "I'm warning you, nothing productive is going to come out of a conversation that happens tonight." And it was just like, I think the eerie part about it is that like, you know that people will even watch this. They'll look at their partner and be like, "You're my Malcolm, you're my Marie," and they might still stay because they think, "Oh, as long as you can find that one piece of love in something so toxic." Because like they were in love, they had a loving moment. I'm gonna give them the benefit of it. 10 minutes, about 10 minutes of the movie, and I can't even exaggerate it.
Yeah.
If you don't count the silence as love moments, like 10 minutes. And I think that so many times I've had those times in my relationships. Great women, awesome women, but it's like this is 10 minutes of happiness and
Compared
50 minutes of toxicity. And I can't. That's a horrible ratio for my life. So it's like, I think that might be one of the most powerful lessons of all, because you'll never know if they actually got away from each other to save themselves. Yeah. Because I love that point you made. Like they feel like they both owe their lives to each other, and that the other person owes them because of the way. But like, I'm very interested in exploring the idea of, y'all save y'all's own lives by separating from each other, because Malcolm has something to prove to himself, and Marie has something to prove to herself. In a sense.
And it goes back to the quote, it's not if the good outweighs the bad, because we see that the bad definitely outweighs the good, but it's like, can this excuse it? And it's like those good moments can't excuse those very toxic moments, even when the gloves are off. Because when the gloves are off, you still don't want to do that much damage, that much harm.
Absolutely. No, Tisha. I see you cycling back, baby.
I'm in my bag,
legacy,
bro.
Man.
In my bag, bro. You know,
legacy.
25 and brought me some wisdom.
Bro, let's talk about 25. Let's talk about 25, right? Because so my boy, you know, your birthday was yesterday. You know, his partner, shout out Alex, planned him and Alex and your mom actually planned this whole big celebration. You know what I'm saying? And you got to see all of your, you know, or like all of your like closest loved ones, family members, and things of that nature. Tell us not only about that moment, but what it feels like, you know, in 2021 to be a Black man who made it to 25.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, just a big shout out to moms, bro. Like, moms really did the damn thing in Alex, bro. Like, that's my love. That's my baby love. Like, I really... Bro, like I can't express the appreciation that I have for them ever. And for y'all as well. Like everybody on that call, like, bro, that it really meant so much. But like the day in general was cool. Like Alex set up this like scavenger hunt for me. So like I had to work all day, but it's like she set clues around the house and I had to find these little letters based on the clue. And she's brilliant, bro. She's brilliant, and she's much more brilliant than me. So like some of the things went over my head. I was like, after like I figured out the clue, and I was like, sometimes I was like, look, I need help. And after I figured out the clue, I'm like, bro, you're really genius. Like you really wrote a triple entendre in a haiku. Like it was crazy. Like, so that kept me entertained throughout the day, because even though I had to work, I had something to look forward to. Each hour, it was like, all right, where's my next clue? So that was cool. And then it spelled out visionary, and I got to go after I figured it out. Our dates had ended. It ended perfect, and I went over there. She had it set up, and it's just like since I've been a kid, I don't think I've had like decorations. And until I was setting up for her birthday, I never really realized how much that stuff mattered. It's like little things like that really matter. Like getting a present and it being wrapped, even though I have never cared about that, like it means something. Like I didn't rap hers, like, because I was like, I mean, you finna get this, it's cool. But like I see the point of it now. Like it's just the actions of it. It's like those little things like bring a lot of love. So I really appreciate her just so much for that. Like I just got so much love for her. Like I was just so warm inside. And it's like I think that like quarantine provided that real opportunity to like, I don't know, each year I just kind of like get lit. My sister, my best friend Vernon come out to wherever I'm at, and we go out, and like it's cool, it's solid, but it's never really like, it's nothing special. I feel like this one was special. It was like you had to make it special. Like seeing y'all on the Zoom call, like I didn't even expect it. She just put it in my lap. I'm like, whoa, this is crazy. And then we played the little Kahoot. Shout out to Vern. Vern won it. I've known Vernon since 2007. So it's like he kind of had a leg up on the competition. He even beat my sister. I think they got the same amount of questions right, but he answered it faster. But yeah, so I just think that like it was just full of love, and it was like amazing. It was just I felt really appreciated, bro. Like I really felt appreciated, and I loved how everybody was just like shouting out my mom for raising me. I'm like, that's lit, because I think she's lit, and I think she did a wonderful job. And like she was young when she had me and my sister, and it was two of us, and she was a single mom, but like she did her damn thing. And it's like she's cold, and I feel like that's why I'm cold. It's like I have no excuse. I used to always think this as a kid. I have no excuse not to be the coldest, because it's like if somebody can defy so many odds and get here, it's like that's just the bar that's been set. Like I gotta hop over it, because it's like I've been given the resources to do so, right? And I think that's how I think about generational wealth and stuff like that too. But like that's just me thinking about legacy, right? I think that her legacy influenced me to make the person that I am. And it just felt amazing that so many people had so much love to share about me, because I'm like, wow, y'all really fucking with me. This shit is lit. Like I didn't know. I think you can live your life and not understanding the impact that you're really making on the people around you. And I hope that I am making a great impact, but it's like nothing that I actively think about. It's just like me living my life day by day. And it's like, it's cool that so many people that I've loved throughout my life were able to come together for me. Like that shit's lit. It's a great feeling, and I think everybody should feel that.
Absolutely. And I gave you some flowers yesterday, and I would be remiss if I didn't give you your flowers on the actual podcast. So I think that one of the greatest things about T. Shaw is his level of balance, right? So when they were talking about what your interests are, this man is doing yoga, you know what I'm saying, reading books. But when we were all outside pre-COVID, was doing all sorts of football and basketball. This man is allergic to grass, and he's doing football. God is good. And it's so crazy, because he's so pro black, but he hates chocolate. Like he's just a hoot. He's really just a hoot. And I think that when I think about you, T. Shaw, it's you're this balance of knowing how to stand up for what you believe is right, being assertive, but also not being so hyper masculine that you're demeaning and degrading to women. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? You're a very self-aware person. And I love your work ethic. Thank you. For those of you who don't know, I think that Brewing Black only existed because when T. Shaw was in a leadership position, he allowed me to think about how to create something like this. And he jumped on this with me, and we've been kicking butt ever since. And so, y'all got Brewing Black because, T. Shaw believed in people, and because T. Shaw, going back to what we were saying earlier about being a great supporting character in someone's life story, he's done that for so many people. And I wish y'all really could have heard everybody who was saying that about him, because I feel like, I think for me, as I've gotten older, and I've become more focused in my own life, from a spiritual perspective, whether it's God or the universe, good people who actually really care about me and who are genuinely good human beings to other people have been put around me. And T. Shaw's definitely one of those people. And I think that
I feel the same about you.
And look, and I think that when you are that for so many people, I would hope, and I assume that all those people who were on that Zoom call yesterday, and even some who maybe weren't even able to make it to that Zoom call, but who were in your life, also felt you also feel that same way about them, that
Absolutely.
they're genuinely good people. And
Absolutely.
so I think to see you turn 25, first of all, it's just a feat that unfortunately is something we have to celebrate as Black people, because so many of us didn't make it to this stage, right? So many of us had our lives stolen from us. But even more importantly, I think that you making it to 25 and seeing that celebration was a lesson in karma. You know what I'm saying? T. Shaw has been adamant on this podcast talking about his mistakes, shortcomings, things of that nature. He's been open and vulnerable with y'all as an audience. But as you can see from this, or if you can't see even on this, trust me when I say his life is good. People around him love him. People around him care about him. And that's because he spent more time trying to be that great person in someone's story than the villain. And so I think as you turn 25, this is a lesson in karma. While you're young, if you're young, listening to this, you know what I'm saying? Like, really pay attention. Really, really pay attention to how folks, are regarding you right now, because, all of it comes back. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And I think that T. Shaw will always be able to look at that moment and realize how much he's loved. And then the last thing I'll say is make sure you give people their flowers. Because like to see your face was like, that was the best thing to know that you were that loved, and for you to actually literally be overwhelmed. It's a beautiful thing. And imagine if we don't do that, and then God forbid, knock on wood, like something happens and we didn't get to tell you how great you are and how much you mean to us and other communities. So, shout out to you, brother.
I appreciate that, bro. I appreciate that. That was just it. I'm all warm inside again. No, I appreciate it.
Man,
bro, it's crazy because I like how you said karma. It's just like, I think I fundamentally have embodied that in my life. Like, that is just how I feel. It's just like, I can't shake the feeling. The more I give, the more comes back. It's like, I want it to be at this most selfless thing, but it's not. It's like, I figured out, I don't know, it's my personal theory, it's my personal philosophy, but I figured every time I give out, something comes back, bro. Like, it's crazy. It's like, I've gotten over the fear. Like, I think I used to think about this with money, and I've even let go of it with money. It's just like, sometimes some people just need money, and it's like, if I have it, I give it, because it's like, I know that the money is coming back, bro. I gave somebody I hadn't talked to in so long, bro, like maybe a decade, reached out to me on Facebook and said something had happened and their mom had died, all this crazy stuff, and that they just needed some money to get to like a place where they could be safe. And I was like, bro, I got 25 right now, like, I'll send you that. And it's like, I thought about it. I was like, is this too much? Like, I ain't talked to this man. Like, I don't know what he doing with his life. He could be lying. Like, I don't know. But I just threw him the change because I'm like, it's going to come back. I don't know how. I don't know why, but it will. Today, I haven't got my deposit back in so long from my last apartment. They hit us back today. Was like, oh, they finally got back to us. I don't know why. I don't know when. Like, they just hit us back and was like, oh, yeah, we can get you the deposit. We sent it to the wrong place. We'll send it again, but it's been a long time, all of this, and that. Will give you $700 back that we took away from your deposit. So I'm like, okay, bro, like 25. It's just like, I don't know. It's like when people talk about the stock market, I feel like it's the stock market. It's just like love. I don't know. You put it out. It's like,
I like that,
bro. It come back, and it's like every time I want to question it, I just continue to go with it, and I get the signs that it's reaffirming. So I want to say that, like, Orlando even said it on the call, like, that's my guy. He's seen me at my worst, and that's why that will always be one of my, like, ride or dies, because it's like he has been with me at my worst, and he's also known me as probably one of my worst people. Like I wasn't always this, right? It's like you have to kind of learn, and I think that's why we talk about calling in rather than calling out, because it's like people were patient with me. People knew that I had a good heart, but it's like, I said bad things. I done bad things. I haven't been the best person ever. He's like, y'all talking about him like y'all ain't know him. Y'all didn't know him before he was 20. And it's like, I don't know what changed, but it's like, I think I started understanding and listening more and just like being more aware. I don't know. I guess less self-absorbed, more like for people around me. And it has just empowered me so much. And it fuels me each and every day. And it's like stuff like that, just hearing that, it just reaffirms that, like, I'm here and I have a purpose and I have a passion in it. Yeah, so just even you shouting me out, like, bro, I appreciate that. And you were bashful because, like, Brewing Black doesn't exist without you either. but it's like being each other's like that supporting character, right? That supporting role. Like you can still win an award for being the actor in the film. It just don't have to be about you. And I think that like
right.
knowing that it's like you will go down in history. Your legacy will be remembered. Like you're going to get that EGOT or whatever the award it needs to be. Like just know that it's going to come back to you.
Absolutely, man. So look, oh man, you said a lot of good things there. So I love the investment in loves or in the love stock. Like that's incredible. And I think that one thing you said, because I was on one end talking about make sure that you treating people right, because look at this great karma. But I think that you actually said something more important than that. Hey, look, there was growth here, right? It took time and trial and error. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like, you try shit, don't work, try shit, don't. And it's like, this is that manifestation. And so the more important message is actually, if you have messed up, if you feel like you're the villain in people's story, like you have time to change it while you're still breathing.
It's never
right?
too late.
So thank you for all those gems, brother.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
This is just a joyous moment. And with it being a joyous moment, we have to, give a shout out to the trials and tribulations ending for the Gorilla Glue woman. So for those of you who do not know, the Gorilla Glue woman was a woman who meant to put Gorilla Scott in her hair, Gorilla Snot in her hair. That's in a I want to say a yellow package. Mm-hmm. The Gorilla Glue is in a more orange package, and she couldn't move her hair at all. She washed, she did all these things, and because of efforts from Black Twitter, which I'll let you get into. She was actually able to get the help of a Black plastic surgeon to do the procedure to help her out with that for free. And so we want to give a shout out to her, to that surgeon. And let's see here, because I want to make sure that I got all of that right. His name is Dr. Michael Obing, and the young woman's name is Tessica Brown. So shout out to Michael Obing, and congratulations, Tessica, for getting that surgery for free. And we wish you nothing but love and happiness, Queen. T-Shaw, what does this tell you about the power of us as a people when we get together? Because people were rallying to try to get resources together for Tessica, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Like people all over social media were invested. I think that there were jokes and laughs and ha-has at some point, but it turned into genuine concern. Like, what are we going to do to help this woman? And I think that to me is the beauty of Black Twitter, and that is the power of us coming together and the power of unity. We saw how we kind of ate up the Bali girls and decided to call them out instead of call them in. I think that we did the opposite. We saw this woman and we decided to call her in a sense that we're calling her into a community of resources. Like, okay, we need to figure out how we can help her solve this. And I just thought that was beautiful. And like with this free surgery, like I'm glad that she's doing okay. I'm glad that the situation has been resolved, and like, cause she could have really been like bald and like really like it could have really been down bad. And I think it was just beautiful to see.
Right. And I think that, what would happen if Black Twitter continued doing stuff like this, if Black social media and us, came together like that all the time, and we had strategies around it to really uplift us constantly. Right. And, it's not too late. Like our legacy, this generation's legacy, the people who are alive, our legacy is still continuing today. Like we still have time to like revolutionize people's lives, systems, structures, so on and so forth. And I think that, we'll look back on this day and Tessica Brown and be like, dang, we did that. We we know how to joke, because she definitely got those jokes.
Absolutely.
But we also know, I think it just shows the humanity of us as well as Black people to be like, all right, baby, come here. Let's try to get it. Let's call the neighbors. Let's call the community. Let's have Pastor take up something for the collection plate for you. Like, we're going to get this figured out. And now she has some money and she got that surgery for free, albeit by a Black person, which we cannot forget. So shout out to Michael Obeng, doctor. We appreciate you for having that love investment. You know what I'm saying? That investment of love in that love stock. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So shout out to Tessica Brown, man. May you be well. And Gorilla Glue, honestly, at this point, make her your sponsor. Make her your sponsor because she went through hell for y'all. And she showed that product works. You understand? So that's just something that, we need to take into consideration. But with that being said, we are going to jump into our spotlight. And for those of you who don't know, spotlight is usually when we give someone or something credit in LA for all the great work that they're doing in the community. But since it is Black History Month, we are going back through time and talking about the great things that happen on the days when we shoot our podcast. So right now, today, it is Thursday, February 11th. And on this great day, I'm going to tell y'all what happened on this great day. Whitney L. Young, who was the executive director of the National Urban League. He died. He passed away. But his legacy in the National Urban League is something that we have to acknowledge. So shout out to Whitney L. Young. But also in 1976, on this day, Clifford Alexander Jr. was confirmed as the first Black Secretary of the Army. So we want to give them a shout out. Shout out to their legacies. Shout out to the things that you all did with your positionalities. And I'm sure the world is a better place because of you all. So, with that being said, T-Shaw, do you have anything that you want to tell the people?
Nah, bro, I think I done dropped all the bars I have today. Again, I just thank y'all for rocking with us here at Brewing Black. Please check us out at Brewing Black Podcast on Instagram, Brewing Black Pod on Twitter. Again, we are always growing and learning and loving and living. And I'm just glad y'all here along for the ride. If y'all not here yet, y'all will be at some point. We will have that billboard on Sunset one day. But until then, continue to rock with us.
All right. And like we always say, T, what do we always say?
Keep the coffee black. And we like our podcast like we like our women. Black. All right, y'all. Thank you for rocking with us. We will see y'all next week. Enjoy.
Peace.